Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for African News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Muslim leaders threaten to rally their supporters in the streets in anger. The Kenyan government doesn't show willing in finding the killer of a hardline cleric. MAKABURI was gunned down in Mombasa Tuesday night. Also, 80 leaders from across Africa and Europe gather in Brussels for a joint summit. Top of the agenda on the opening day is the crisis in Central African Republic. Meanwhile, France and Germany pledge to become a motor for development for Africa. And in rewriting the relationship between Europe and Africa, investment is key. But has the continent come far enough to attract enough foreign cash to realise its potential? We hear from the CEO of the continent's only African-based ratings agency. First up, Islamic leaders in Kenya have given the government 3 days to track down the killer of a hardline Muslim cleric, warning that if that doesn't happen, they'll stage street protests. Sheikh Abu Bakr Sharif was gunned down in Mombasa Tuesday night. Muslim activists have accused Kenyan authorities of assassinating radical clerics in the past, and previous killings have sparked days of rioting. Well, today Mombasa was calm but tense as armed police headed out on patrol. Our Duncan Woodside sent us this report.
Sheikh Abu Bakr Sharif, also known as MAKABURI, was gunned down just outside a maximum security prison near Mombasa. The sheikh and a second man died in the attack. A witness recounts the events.
What we heard were gunshots continuously, and nobody looked back. We just jumped into a trench. Initially, we heard more than 10 gunshots, and then there were 2 more.
The murder of Abu Bakr Sharif is the latest in a series of killings of Islamic clerics here on Kenya's coast over the last 18 months or so. Other high-profile victims include Abu Rogo, who was murdered in August 2012, and Ibrahim Ishmael, who was gunned down in October last year. These incidents have led to allegations that Kenya's security forces are engaged in a systematic campaign of extrajudicial killings, something which the authorities consistently deny.
Both Ibrahim Ishmael and Abu Rogo preached at this mosque, an alleged extremist hotbed which was raided by police in February. Their murderers remain at large, which, according to Rogo's wife, is far from surprising.
My husband was killed in front of the police. MAKABURI was killed in front of the prison. And the guards are there everywhere in the prison. You know how it is guarded and what. How could such a thing happen in front of this place, the protected area? So whom will you think are the ones responsible for this?
For the time being, Muslim leaders here are urging calm. But they've given the government an ultimatum. Get your house in order in the next 3 days, or we'll take mass action.
If they don't take serious action to arrest the security problem at the coast, then we will go to the streets because it is our constitutional right.
Mombasa is therefore braced for clashes. The mood could well turn particularly ugly after prayers on Friday.
No one's yet claimed responsibility for a series of fatal bombings outside of Cairo University today. 2 people were killed in Wednesday's blasts, including a police brigadier general. 2 bombs went off outside of the university, followed shortly afterwards by a third. Police later found a 4th device planted nearby. The government's estimated that around 500 people have been killed as attacks against security forces have escalated following Islamist President Mohamed Morsi's ousting last year. Their fears militants may be ramping up attacks ahead of presidential elections due next month. Here in Europe, 80 leaders from across Africa and Europe are meeting in Brussels for the start of a joint summit between the continents. As delegations got down to business, EU leaders insisted that they were seeking a partnership of equals. Europe's waded in to help UN and African peacekeepers tackle security crises in Somalia, Mali, Niger, and most recently, Central African Republic. On Wednesday, France and Germany announced that they're planning on further cementing relations with the continent.
On the occasion of this EU-Africa summit, I proposed that we forge a new alliance between our 2 continents on 3 fronts. Security, that is, peace building, but also development, in other words, growth. And finally, environment and climate change.
Well, our Maeve McMahon is in Brussels following the summit for us. She joins us now. Maeve, the crisis in Central African Republic was central to talks today. Any new developments on that front?
Yes, it was, Georgia, and rightly so. The EU mission to the Central African Republic was finally given the go-ahead, and we should see some 400 European troops in Bangui by the end of this month and a further 400 by the end of the next month. Now, their role will be to focus on securing the airport area and two other neighbourhoods in Bangui, mainly at night time, where a number of killings and lootings have seemingly been taking place. European troops will also have to ensure that that humanitarian aid is reaching the people that need it the most and help those internally displaced people get back home safely before the rainy season kicks in a few weeks. Now, a number of about 12 European countries have pledged support and troops, including Georgia, who's currently looking to be a member of NATO. But forced generation will continue, so EU member states can decide to pledge either troops or logistical support in the next few weeks.
Now, today we also saw France and Germany announcing this new partnership with Africa. What exactly would that entail?
We did indeed. We saw a joint show of solidarity for Africa. It's from both France and Germany. It's the first time we see this of its kind. Germany also always being so focused in Asia, for example. But tonight we heard Angela Merkel talk about that great bond at the moment between France and Germany when it comes to Africa. And she praised François Hollande for his work in both Mali and, of course, the Central African Republic. Now, she did admit that this was a new path for Germany, saying it was symbolic that they're now prepared to give more commitments to Africa. This will, of course, make life much easier for France when François Hollande comes to summits and begs here for support from his European counterparts when it comes to different missions for security in Africa.
Thanks very much. Meg McMahon there for us in Brussels at the opening of the EU-Africa summit. Now, trade's also a big issue on the table between the two continents. Europe is Africa's largest donor and development partner, and both blocs are keen to switch the EU's role from assistance to investor. It's a tough balance to find, though, and for a closer look at Africa's economic challenges, I'm joined by our business editor, Marcus Carlson, and Stanislas Zeze from Bloomfield Investment Corporation. Now, he runs a credit ratings agency for Africa based in Ivory Coast. Stanislas, thanks very much for coming in to see us. Now, a couple of years ago, we were hearing a lot about Africa rising, Africa being on the brink of coming into its own. Has that been realised, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that everybody is okay to agree on the fact that the African continent is becoming some sort of El Dorado for the investor because the return of investment is the highest in the world. Obviously, there remain some challenges that need to be overcome by African countries, although a lot of effort has been done in terms of economic reforms, in terms of making sure that they create a more conducive environment for investors.
But if we look at some of the challenges that lie ahead for the African economy, governance is one of those challenges. And we see today how African leaders go to Brussels, that they look for investment from European countries, but are they doing enough at home to bring forward and to create a stable and predictable investment climate? That is what international investors are looking for before they would even start thinking about of going in.
Yeah, it is. This is correct. A lot of effort is being done. Actually, if you see most of the countries starting to strengthen the institution, the administrative institution, political institution, so we tend to see more and more the politician realizing that a president come into power, it doesn't need to change the whole administration, and people who have acquired experience remain there. So. We're starting to see this effort being done.
But you said that we're starting to see it. There's still a long way to go.
Well, we still need a strong political will to make. All the ingredients are there. What we need now is political courage and political will to really make this opportunity, this potential that Africa has to real opportunity that will create an environment that will be conducive enough to attract investors.
What's going to drive forward Africa's financial maturity? I suppose the presence of you, a ratings agency, a local ratings agency in Africa, suggests that there is a certain level of financial maturity in Africa at the moment. But what's going to drive that maturity forward?
You think we have started this process of having a more mature and more attractive financial market through transparency, for instance. The credit rating agencies are actually bringing a great deal of transparency in the financial market, and this make it more attractive for international investors. We have a lot of investors that are more and more interested in the sovereign debt. So they're starting to buy sovereign debt in local currency. This is pretty new. Before, you had investors who wanted to only buy sovereign debt in euros or in dollars. Now they're willing to buy in local currency. That's a step forward. And also, beside the credit rating agency, you have the reform of a different financial market in Africa that have actually reinforced this attractiveness. And we have new leaders who have actually a lot of experience in other more sophisticated market are coming and creating this environment. There's a lot of effort that have been made.
Well, thanks very much, Stanislas Zizi, for coming in to see us. Marcus Carlson for joining us here on Africa News. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for this hour. We'll have more in about 45 minutes if you can join us then. Till then, take care.